Welcome to the E-Show with Neil Ravin. Founded in 2013, the EHL has become the college placement leader on the East Coast. Sit back and learn more about the next step in your junior hockey career.
Welcome to the E-Show, presented by the Penalty Box Foundation. The Foundation's mission centers around their daily motto, we take care of our own, as they help out all of those within the hockey community who've experienced a catastrophic event. Learn more at penaltyboxfoundation.org. What's up? My name is Neil Ravin, and this is episode number 160 of the E-Show. On this week's episode, we preview the 5th edition of the EHL Frozen Finals. Kicking things off in the weekly rundown, we recap the road to Providence for the 4 teams in the EHL and the 4 teams in the EHLP. Simply put, this was the best postseason in the history of the league, as over 50% of the first and second round series combined needed a Game 3 in order to determine a winner. Moving along to the E-Crew Fantasy Challenge, and the fantasy season has officially come to a close, with Team OG hanging on until the last possible second down the stretch. Finally, we wrap up the episode at our What to Watch For segment, providing a storyline that we're keeping an eye on this week in Providence. This week's episode is brought to you by Hockey Tech, the developers for the new EHL app, available now in both Apple and Google stores. And with that, let's bring in Jeff and Anthony. Guys, we are days away from the Frozen Finals. I mean, again, I asked this every week.
Have you checked that tracker? I've been looking at it. We're in single digits.
Yes.
Single digits.
I ask this every week, Jeff. Like, how did we get here, right? Like, just...
I don't know. It's been a great year. It's been fun. It's been weird the last couple of weeks. It's been weird, but it hasn't, right? Neil and Anthony, I mean, we talk about how deep this league is each year. It keeps getting deeper and deeper, and I feel like these playoffs have shown that. How many Game 3s we've had, we'll get into that. How many overtimes we've had, we'll get into that. And yeah, it's been a wild ride for sure, but everyone's tickets have been punched.
Yes. And I know from the outside looking in, it's a lot of the same teams, but I will say that to date this year, this is far and away the best postseason that we've ever had. So let's start explaining that to you in the weekly rundown.
It's time for the E-Crew's Weekly Rundown.
The E-Show Weekly Rundown is brought to you by the Junior Hockey Podcast, your home for junior hockey news, knowledge, and nonsense. Check them out at tjhpodcast.com.
So in the EHL, we obviously have our 4 divisions, which gave us 12 total best-of-3 series when you combine the first round and the second round together, the division semifinals and the division finals. 7 of those 12 series went to a Game 3. and I think we have to talk about first, like, the idea of a Game 3 to me is like still like so much bigger than a Game 7. And what I mean by that is, like, to get to a Game 3, no matter what happens, whoever loses Game 1 has to then win Game 2. Or you don't get to the game. I know this is like Captain Obvious, one of the commercials, right? Like,
right.
but that's why I'm saying this is the best postseason ever, because for that to happen 7 times, like, that shows how much parity we have. I know that when you look at our this year's graphics are not the ticket punch, Chef. We did a curveball. We did the
energy cans. I like that.
Energy cans. But
those are great. Well done, Justin.
Yeah, and when you look at the graphics, they show how many appearances each team has had, right? So, like, we don't have any first appearances in the EHL. We almost did, right?
Almost.
But the point is, even though you see 2 appearances for the Railers, the Rangers, this is their 3rd appearance. The Avalanche, we know, Chris, this is your 5th appearance. Okay, we acknowledge that.
Get it out there, Chris. Okay. All right.
And then for the Little Flyers, I haven't even got a chance to post theirs yet, because we're recording this minutes, I feel like, after they just knocked off Team Maryland. This is their
on the fly,
appearance.
like NHL Network.
I mean, hey, you know what? And we're gonna get to the overtimes too. If that game had gone into overtime, we probably would have had to start recording. Just saying, we could have done live play-by-play.
I mean, let's just be thankful that the last game wasn't Express and Junior Rangers.
Yes.
Because this would have been E-Show after dark.
Yes.
Our buddy Tyler Ringo might be getting 2 game checks because he called 2 games.
Yes.
So he might be getting 2 game checks.
But to add to your point, Neil, not only did a lot of these series go to game 3, but so many of those game 3s went to overtime.
Yes.
I called one between the 87s and Little Flyers back in the first round. That triple overtime game was a game 3, unlike last season where triple overtime between the Express and Wizards. I think that was game 1.
Game two, yeah.
The Express have to stop going into triple overtime. They're 0-2 in those things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely the wildest postseason that I remember since I started working in this league. This is nuts.
And I don't even have the number in front of me, but those 12 series, right? I mean, I could just rip off some of them right now. Little Flyers over the 87s in the semifinals, right? Maryland over the Ducks in the semifinals. These are series where the teams that won game 1 lost the series, right? So, like, it's something to then come back and force game 3. It's something else to come back and force game 3 and then win game 3. Right?
Same thing for same thing. Express Rangers. Express won game 1, and then the Rangers won games 2 and 3. Like you just said, in triple OT.
The Spartans won game 1. The Avalanche won games 2 and 3.
Yep.
Like
game 3 overtime.
Rhode Island in the first round won game 1. Chiefs won games 2 and game 3.
And then speaking of the Chiefs, I know we're gonna go like division, but 1-0 Railers in game 3.
Well, let's start there, Jeff, because that was the first Bring the Energy drink that was released, right? So the Railers, win game 1 after they knock off the Rough Riders in the semifinals. Then they get shut out in Newington, 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
I think ultimately what benefited them the most for the Railers is that they turned around and they played game 3 immediately the next day.
Yeah, because I mean, we all know that you have to. I mean, in the season, I feel like this is a huge factor, but I feel like playoffs even more short-term memory. That's a thing that you need in hockey. Goalies probably the most, right? When you give up a tough goal, but as a team collectively, absolutely, Neil and Anthony. Because, like you said, Neil, with game 3s, with the 3-game series being such a beast, I agree with you that a 3-game series is almost tougher than a 7-game series. Because of its shortness, right? Because out of 7 games, you can have a big goose egg, you can have a donut and kind of recover a little bit. You can't. You gotta, you lose game 1, like you said. You're playing for your season in game 2, and then you put all the energy to win that game 2, then you still have to go to game 3 and win the series.
Yeah, and for the Chiefs, right? Factor in that this past week on Monday night they played game 3. Against Rhode Island, right? Well, elimination game. Win or go home.
Adrenaline pumping. All sorts of energy.
Day off Tuesday, you lose game 1 against the Railers on Wednesday, right?
Yep.
Day off Thursday, you have another elimination game. Friday is when they shut out the Railers at home. And then another elimination game on Saturday. So you're playing 4 games in 6 days. 3 of them are elimination. So, I mean, to your point, Jeff, for them to be 1-0, like we know the Railers are going, and it's like, oh, they won the regular season, they won the playoff, it all makes sense, right? But it was damn close.
Yeah, and working the travel too, right? I mean, you start in Worcester, then you travel to Connecticut, and then you go back to Worcester because the way we're doing, which I like, by the way, I like that we have done the back and forth. Higher seed gets 2 if you go 3. And everybody at least gets 1 home game. I like that. I think that's huge. I think that plays a different factor. So I think that was a job well done by all of you owners and league administrators at the league owners meetings last year to approve that. And I'm excited for the 3-game series in the Frozen Finals too, Neil and Anthony. I think that's let's see. I would be shocked if we didn't have at least 1 game 3, if not 2 game 3s going into that Friday night.
Yeah. So that was the first team to secure their spot, right? And actually, it was probably the cleanest domino that we could have go first because it told us immediately who would be what seed in Providence, right? Because we knew as soon as the Railers went, they were the 2 seed because they had the 3rd best record in the league. The 2 best records before ahead of them were in the North Division, and the two next records behind them were in the East Division, right? So we knew right away when the Railers won, they're going to play the East Division champ, and then North's going to play South.
Which actually, bringing that up, Neil, did anyone have to ask you that question, or did they do what we said last week and just rewind and get the answer themselves?
I want
like adults.
I want to think of myself as a decently humble person, right? I got a number of texts that said fantastic explanations. Thank you. So I was like, you know what? Ooh. People listen, Jeff. So like that's what it's all about.
Neil, this is an Atkinson Country Club golf clap for you, pal.
Thank you. God, I can't wait to get out there. Anyways, so that was the first one. So then move it day later to Sunday, and you have the two big matchups that we were just talking about before. The chance for the Express not to punch their first ever ticket. It would be their second to the finals, but for the Spartans, their first. And it's teams that won game one and then lost game two, and now we're in game three. And I don't think I've ever committed that much of my life to watching two single games in one day on hockey TV. I mean, I spent hours watching.
And we were all texting back and forth too. I mean, we're all doing everything, and yeah, you did. Yep.
Hours because the Rangers game versus the Express started at 1:00, and the Avalanche game versus the Spartans started at 3:00. I think I was watching hockey TV for
like 6 hours,
6 or 7 straight hours. But like, it wasn't like we were watching multiple games, Jeff. We were watching 2 games.
Right. You watched like 4 games though, basically on all the overtimes. If you want to add them up too.
Like I was watching the game of my other job. You know, I do video editing at Bloomberg. I know I've talked about it a couple of times, but I'm just like, when is this game going to end? And
when am I going to get back to my other work?
Yeah, well, and that day was really crazy too, because I had to go in that Sunday because there's this big thing in like the financial world with like Credit Suisse and UBS. Just so many different sound bites that I had to cut. I mean, I hope there aren't any Swiss players in the Frozen Finals, because I might get a call from my boss saying, "Hey, can you get a quote from these guys?" And I'm just going to be like, "No." Well, on second thought, if they pay me, maybe then I'll take the extra
some Credit Suisse next to their name.
But yeah, my boss is looking over my shoulder and is just like, "You're still watching hockey?" I'm like, "Yes, the game is still going on.
It's still the same game."
You're watching a new game? Nope, still same game, boss.
He was like, "Oh wow, that's unbelievable."
And like, it felt like the scoring chances multiplied in the overtimes of the Rangers Express game. Maybe it was just me, and maybe you get more focused as the game gets to that point. But it felt like each team had more chances in the overtime periods than they had in the regulation periods. And
which I think that usually happens though, right? I mean, you're tired legs, but at that point you're gassed, and guys just aren't. You're not thinking the same as you are in regulation time. So I think that tracks. That makes sense.
I mean, I think at that point, when it's a deciding game 3 and the next goal wins, and I saw it with both teams, you just put it all on the line. That's when you just throw everything in the kitchen sink at the goaltenders. David Felak and Jack Boschert were spectacular.
Yeah.
They both
give credit to Jack Boschert. We're going to miss him in the EHL. That is one of the best goalies to walk through this league's doors. It just stinks to see him go out like that.
His entire family too, getting to meet them at the Frozen Finals last season. And it's hard not to root for those players. But, with David Felak, he also had a spectacular season filling in for Nathan Miller.
Huge.
Who was a historic goaltender in his own right in the EHL. But I think for that those overtime periods, for the players, you just leave it all out there. Yep. You empty the tank, give them whatever you've got, and that's what happened. They both teams traded grade A chances. We've talked about the Express and how they struggled to score goals. I mean, last season BJR was also a pretty low scoring team, but it certainly didn't feel that way when, maybe with the finishing, the fact that it went to 3 overtimes, but just in terms of the opportunities, it was so fun to watch.
Yeah, and you knew you were going to feel bad for somebody. I mean, good point about Felak. I think Felak, we didn't do an award for it, but he might have been the best in-season addition. If you rewind the tape and go back to when the Rangers were struggling in the beginning of the year and everyone was sounding alarms and bells, minus one Rich DiCaprio, who had a conversation with me and said, I'm not nervous. We're 4 games in. Yeah, we haven't gotten a win yet. And then David Vilak came in and he was a top 3 top goaltender up there with Boschert. It was Vilak and Boschert. 1A, 1B for best goalies in the entire league all year long. So, I mean, they both saw over 50 shots, which for 3 overtimes, I don't know about you guys, but I was actually expecting to see maybe like 70, 80, but it goes to both your points that, like Anthony, like you were saying, guys are blocking shots all over the place. Every line, every player, forward, defense, doesn't matter what your name is, you're getting in the way of rubber. So
Vilak had a blocker save in the first overtime to keep the game alive. Boschert had a sprawling toe save on Will Halecki.
Yeah, one where he jumped up and punched
a
shot.
That was like a soccer goalie. It felt like, right? Like punching the ball. And then it's just like the game winner batted out of the air by James Berg. Trivia. Do you guys remember who his brother was in our league?
James Berg. I know that we've had Bergs before, but now not Andy.
Nope.
What's the first initial?
Jacob Berg. Played for the
Also,
Little Flyers.
Jacob and James.
So it's
okay.
Was that a little hint as to what could have been coming later in the weekend? James Berg scoring a big goal, following the footsteps of his older brother. I don't know,
cool.
but
what a goal from center ice.
Yeah. what a fantastic series between those two teams. And right then we already knew when that one ended that that was the matchup. Rangers versus Railers, which we'll dive into those matchups next in a second. But
huge credit to Nick Coda too, rookie head coach for the Walpole Express, to walk in there and just to assimilate the team that he did and adjusting, leaving another junior league and coming to this league and knowing that this league's run differently, and he just navigated through everything. And that was another team, right? That was about 500 at one point. And I remember Coach Coda asking me at Newington, Jeff, if you find any offense on the street, give me a call because I could use some more in my. But I mean, they did. They plugged away. They made great. They made great in-season additions too, and we're this close from moving on. So
literally that close,
that close. Yep.
Triple overtime.
Yeah, and Seacoast too. I mean, give them credit, right, guys? That's another team. Brett Schreider, and I know we haven't gotten to the North really yet. I know we're kind of pinballing all around with all the different series, but man, that team was loaded from front to back. And Eddie Mulligan was another great addition. That he was a huge difference maker down the stretch. Vadadad, Prey, Oliveri. It's a shame we're not going to see them in the Frozen Finals either.
Yeah, we'll get to that series now, but I want to say first for the Rangers back at the Frozen Finals for the 3rd time. But what's
EHL.
funny is for EHL, yes.
Yeah. EHLP, that I think they've made it almost every year in their existence.
We'll give you that.
We'll get to them.
We'll give you that same love in a second, Rich. But EHL for the 3rd time, but first time in Providence since the first year, right?
Yes.
So they were one of the 4 teams back in the very first year of the Frozen Finals, which was 2018. Their second appearance, 2021, when they won their championship. That was in Westchester. So
the COVID year, which we all that was crazy.
Yeah, a few years separated from their first appearance, but back in the Frozen Finals. And as soon as that flipped over, I was like, oh, look at this, tie game, Spartans Avalanche. Maybe somebody will save us some time and score a regulation winner. Nope. We go to overtime. I mean, and that was damn close to going to double overtime too. I mean, there was a breakaway chance in there for Seacoast. Definitely a little more physical, I think, than
That's a little bit
than the Rangers Express one was in overtime. But again, like that was just like the Express. The Spartans won game 1, and I think to knock the Avalanche off their mountain, you have to step fully.
Ooh, I love that.
Like you know what I like
play on words, knock them off their mountain. Ooh.
Like you have
Other
to just
golf clap you.
Step fully, and like they didn't. They had their foot on the gas, but not quite. I mean, they were up.
They had a 2-0 lead.
They were up 2-0 in the game. Like and I'm sure it's one of those things where Brett's listening and saying, "Yeah, he'll think about this one for a while." Like,
And they got 2 goals from Kyler Lewis and Carson Whitman. I mean, that's not even William Prey and Drew Alviveri or Kenny Maxwell. Those are 2 depth guys.
I was actually going to say, Jeff, that's a big plus for the Seacoast Spartans. Just how they were able to prove that they didn't just have to rely on that Preo Max line with Oliveri, Prey, Kenny Maxwell, Jeremiah Snyder, Braden Riley, a forward who had 8 points in 5 games with a goal and 7 assists.
Yeah.
A lot
they
of
must have been
players
feeling
stepped
great
up
after the
to
first
Seacoast.
period. Yeah. And then, so credit to Chris Sorella. I mean, he's been around a long time. He's been at all different levels, playing and coaching, and a credit to the New Hampshire Avalanche. They faced adversity after the first, and they show that they're deep. I mean, Madeline World, Daniel McKiernan, and look who's back. Kyle Dan, 4 goals. The Danimal was an animal last year. That's when he got on the map. And after a not so heavy point year in the regular season, then he blew doors in the EHL postseason. I mean, woof. Shane Paremba, he saw 56 pucks through, so he made 54 saves on.
Got better as the game went on.
Yeah.
So, but
you also bring up Kyle Dan. I know we're going to go to the EHLP later, but we're going to have 2 Dan brothers in the Frozen Finals.
Yes, we will.
Ooh.
Yes, we will.
Good Q and Anthony article. Just saying. Go on EasternHockeyLeague.org.
Yep.
Go read it.
Yep.
Read all about their backyard hockey matches and fights.
Yes, for sure. But yeah, I mean, 5th year of the Frozen Finals, 5th appearance for the Avalanche. I will ask the question when we're down there to Chris, the same question I asked last year. Why is it? Why are the Frozen Finals only a thing when the Avalanche are there, right? So, but they knew as soon as that was over that they got to sit and watch and wait and see Little Flyers versus Maryland today, which had plenty of snarl throughout that series as well. In both games 1 and 2.
Lots of pims today, Neil.
Yes, there were a few. Each team winning every game, I guess you could say, on home ice, because Little Flyers won 2 on home ice to Maryland's 1, which I don't know if you can point at anything in the regular season because of that, but if the home team won every game, it came down to a point or so really during the regular season between those 2 teams. Like it's tough not to look back, and if you're Maryland, think like this bounce here, this bounce there. Are we hosting in game 3? Are we winning game 3? Like,
right.
And I think it speaks to the South Division that the number 3, number 4 seeds making it to the division final.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And like we talked about last week too, like how close Maryland and PLF were. They were just 2 points separated from one and the other. So we love Josh Fusco, but I hope he's not looking back like, if we had gotten those, that one overtime loss or those multiple overtime losses or that one game where we lost in the closing seconds in regulation.
Yeah,
maybe we could have been in the 3 seed and not the 4 seed. Yeah, it's
how
look back at that stuff.
How about Morley Phillips too? Jeff, you brought up Kyle Dan having that amazing run last season. I think this run by Morley Phillips was even better. 7 goals in as many games. Yeah. Also had 3 assists, 10 points.
Yeah.
He's an 04. He's an 04. So I mean, he could either return. Maybe he goes to the Null. I know he played a few games with the Tomahawks this year up in Johnstown, but he's got a very bright future.
Yep. Could stay with TMD and go to the Maryland Black Bears too. I mean, that's Murray Gunty's team as well with Team Maryland. So, that'll be interesting to see. Maybe he comes back because he's young and plays with TMD next year. And I mean, who knows? But yeah, I was hoping to see him in the Frozen Finals under the bright lights too. But can only have so many teams. Unless we want to, do we want to do like a quick expansion, Neil? You want to just add 2 more in real quick?
Surprise at large bid.
Well, and it's like, I guess like I'm not a very superstitious person.
Oh, right? We know that.
Yeah, like
putting the Avalanche's name on the regular season trophy.
Yeah, like and like people like I don't believe in jinxes and stuff like that, but I do believe.
You don't. You played baseball, which is weird.
Yeah, but I do believe in like karma. And I do believe in redemption and stuff like that. And
so little stitious.
Yeah, and like Avalanche and Little Flyers, right? Like I really didn't dislike last year's EHL playoff format. The opportunity to win your way back in and get more teams involved in the finals, right? but the perfect storm of the Wolves and 87s, both losing then winning, is what kind of got us to this format, which I think this is the perfect one. And the results of this year's playoffs have proven that. But the two teams that I guess you could say maybe had a little bit of a gripe last year were Avalanche and Little Flyers, who were the next two to get in this year, right? It's just kind of funny how it works out like that, right?
I mean, one thing I do like about the expanded format from last season, and I'm not just saying this because the 87s benefited. I think when you're a developmental league where you want to get guys to commit to college hockey, it's good to have maybe some more teams and give players a bit longer of a playoff run and another chance to maybe make an impression on college coaches. Because with the 87s, speaking from personal experience, I know some O2s where they were playing some of their best hockey down the stretch and they get knocked out in the first round. That's tough. If you want to get that college commitment.
I'm kind of back and forth. I see both sides. I don't believe I've never been a big believer in any sport in watering things down either. It kind of lessens the product at the end of the day too, if you know what I mean. So I think that this, like you said, I think this is the perfect format. I mean, we'll see when you guys do those off-season meetings in a couple months if anything changes, but always can,
It always can, but I'm gonna
takes a bunch of votes.
I'm gonna make sure that the data is ready. Everyone knows how many game threes we had, right? It would help EHL if we had 2 more game threes. Okay, just throwing it out there. I know. Anthony and I would love to have 3 hours to skate on Friday morning because there would be a nice open ice block, right? But let's get 2 game threes, right?
Let's do it.
I think the matchups also are kind of just fitting in a way, right? Rangers versus Railers. I said this to Sean Bertoni when he called, but it's still pretty fresh. The passing of Mike Odessa, but Mike Odessa used to own the Boston Bulldogs.
That's right.
Sold and became the Boston Junior Rangers. Mike
Odessa,
I
just got chills. I'm not even kidding.
Odessa then gave his sons, Matt and Mike 3, the idea to get back into junior hockey, and they purchased the Railers Junior Hockey Club. And now they play each other like in the finals in the best of 3 this year of all years. Like,
we see you, Big Mike. All right,
I'm
looking up.
Okay, again, I'm not. What's the saying, Anthony? I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious. Like that's kind of like
you're
a
mini
little
stitious.
like mini stitious. Okay, perfect, Jeff. Like that's
you are.
That's interesting, right?
It's fate. It's fate.
It's fate.
Yeah.
And then last year, I just mentioned the Avalanche and Little Flyers maybe have a little bit of a gripe with the way things ended last year, but they're back in Providence again. That was the 2019 championship game. And now they face each other now. Now, nobody from that championship game is on either team anymore. Okay. Everyone has moved on. That was multiple years ago at this point. So there's no real redemption there. But I think from the coaching and ownership perspective, maybe there is some redemption there, right? But
organizationally wise, for sure.
Yeah. But 2 pretty emphatic matchups. And for those that are planning ahead, you'll see the schedule posted as soon as we can. We wanted to record fast, right? Yeah. But the Rangers and Railers will be the first game every day. The Little Flyers and Avalanche will be the second game every day. So that means the Rangers Railers go 4:30, 11:11, and the Avs and the Little Flyers go 7:30, 2 and 2. So just to make it easier, again, if we're going to ask those 4 EHL teams for the favor of giving us 2 game threes, if you'd like to go to overtime, if you just don't mind doing that the first day, that would be easier when we have no EHLP games also that day, right?
Yes.
I would prefer not to start Thursday or Friday as the last game of the day, EHLP at 10:30 p.m.
Right.
I prefer.
Same goes to the premiere on Saturday. You can do your overtime Saturday because you have your own day. So EHL Wednesday, EHLP Saturday. You have your own days. Please make your
I'm just gonna put this out there because we're gonna be down there on Tuesday. Well, I guess today to check out all the equipment. We're gonna take a look at the rink again. Kind of like what we did last season. I think we're going to have to just look around and make sure that there's no hidden sprinklers or mirrors that
yes.
reflect
Oh,
the sunlight.
God.
Just
Yes.
like, Buffalo Wild Wings, where they just keep the games going into overtimes. I've heard what the
Oh,
parents do for the
man.
watch parties. I would not put it behind, some of the families on, say, the Avalanche or the Little Flyers to come up with some nefarious way to get a game going into OT. So,
Called
Let's
out.
go Avs. Let's go
Called out.
Avs.
I totally forgot about those old school Buffalo Wild Wings commercials, Anthony. Those were
Love those.
Pretty,
Those
those
are
were pretty funny. Bring
well
those
done,
back.
young
Bring those
man.
back.
Well done, young man / not so young man.
We'll
Maybe join Team OG real soon.
we'll jump over to the EHLP now, which of their 9 first round, second round combined, semifinal, division final series combined, 5 of them went to game 3. So we're over half. We're over 50% at both levels going to game 3. I mean, I think I want to start in the Boston division because as long as we have 3 divisions of play in the EHLP and we have this 4th at-large team, you're always going to have a matchup where it doesn't matter what happens for one of the teams, right? Like last year it was Vermont versus the Avalanche. The Avalanche knew no matter what happened that they were going. The difference was Vermont knew they had to win to still go. This year, the Avalanche or the Rangers and the Railers both knew that they were both going no matter what happened, which is kind of unique that they were in that series against each other.
but they still went 3 games.
Oh my God!
Because Neil laid it out there so well last week that there was still a lot to play for because of the seeding.
There is a lot to play for. Now, the
Time
Railers,
slots, days, when you're going to play, if you're not going to play back to it, like that was still, I think, huge.
Yeah, the Railers are the 4th seed now because of what
Right.
took place. So they have to have the turnaround Friday into Saturday, and heaven forbid one of the game 3s in the EHL goes to overtime. Everybody knock on wood, right? Like that 8 p.m. Friday night game may not start at 8 p.m. And then the next day, like what time does it start, right? So just that's why it was so critical. I mean, in game 2, I was like, oh, look at this. The Railers are up 3-0. No, was this game 2? I'm trying to think which game this was. When was the 7-6 overtime wild game?
That was the last game. That was the game 3.
St. Patrick's Day.
I thought that was game 2.
That was.
I thought the game 3 was a 4-2 final.
Correct. Yep.
I
correct.
But like
game 2, Friday,
okay,
March, St. Patty's Day, March 17th.
So
correct.
Okay, so it was the Railers who won game 1, and then the Railers were up 3-0 in game 2, and I'm like, oh, okay, so maybe this is going to be clean, and the Railers will be the 1, and then the Rangers will be the 4. But then I look again, and I'm like, 4-3. What just happened? They come all the way back. Not to be. I watched a lot of hockey TV on Sunday.
It's all blending, buddy. You're getting showcase brain.
I watched a lot of that Jake Basile call of the 7-6, right? So I mean, they come all the way back. Those 2 teams truly fought it out for a series that didn't really mean anything. So I give them a lot of credit for that. But that means 100%. The Rangers go in as the 1, Railers as the 4. Every series combined EHL and EHLP, but one of them went to a game 3, and that one that didn't go to a game 3 was the 87s. And I think I said this about the Wolves. We're gonna get to the Wolves too. I know they had a heartbreaking loss today, but maybe Anthony, we're sleeping on the 87s a little bit.
That man, the Avs, by the way, did not lose a regulation yet in the playoffs. Just saying.
Yeah. I think
5-0-1 for the Avs, 4-0-0 for the 87s. 87s played the fewest games of anyone that's moving on. 4 games.
Yeah, they swept through the first 2 rounds.
I
mean, with the 87s, because look, we've talked about it, and I think we might as well just say the Mid-Atlantic Division was not eye-popping this season. The Huntsmen put up a hell of a series. I think it was much closer than the 2 games implied. Also, our best wishes to Luka Palachik. I know he took that hard hit in game 2. Hope that he's continuing his recovery. But going back to the 87s, they played, I think, the Junior Rangers to a 1-goal game. They had a rough one against the Railers, but they also had some really good games against Adirondack. I mean, I know they're not in the playoffs anymore, but they've shown that they can compete with, any team in the EHLP.
Yep.
Between the Railers and Junior Rangers, they haven't gotten over that hump in beating them, but especially now with Zach Gruber on the team. Now Vasily Vasin has been on the team longer, has more chemistry with the team, as well as Robert Calise in his second go-around with the 87's EHLP team. Like, I wouldn't say that they're the favorites, but it's nowhere out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. I mean, that they've played the least hockey has to go to their favor too. They're less beat than all these other teams that have played, 6 games. And so, I mean, I think that's a huge difference maker. It's like, look at the Avs. They're undefeated in regulation. They played 6 games. You look at, let's see, Rangers also played 6. Railers played 5. So I think that absolutely comes into play at this time of year. Who's played more minutes? Who has bigger breaks going into the Frozen Finals too? I think that's another thing. Well, rest versus Russ, boys. Hey, little rest versus Russ. What do you say? Hey. But yeah, all interesting storylines and a great job by Connor McNeilis and the 87's P to be able to bounce back from last year, which was not a good year for the Premier after winning it all the year before. Right? Was that the year before? Yeah.
Yeah.
The Premier.
Yeah, I mean, I joked about it on a couple of broadcasts last season. It's not often that you see a coaching change after a championship run. but when the head coach is also the owner and he decides, well, I want to spend more time on the EHL team, get someone else, because Connell has interacted with the 87s for a little while now before he even started coaching for us. Last year's team was very young. Couple of returning players this season, plus an influx of newer players. You look at like the 2 Florida boys, Nick Schultz and Tyler Chafe. They've been unbelievable. Yep. You go back to Vasin. You also have the leadership from Borisov. So it's a great combination of returning guys and new players. And for Connell, I mean, he's definitely better than what last year's record implies. And it's good to see him make it to the Frozen Finals now.
For sure.
Definitely.
And we knew when the 87s clinched their spot, they would be the 2 seed. Based off their record compared to the Wolves and Avalanche. And again, we touched on this with the EHL. The team that won game 1 in that series didn't win the series. The
Wait,
Wolves,
aren't they the never mind.
Yeah,
I was going to say, aren't they the 3 seed? But I remember the Railers get the number 4 seed because they got the at-large.
So, yep. Right. So, but back to that Wolves Avalanche, the same day that the Rangers and Railers are playing an irrelevant 7-6 overtime game, the Avalanche and Lumberjacks are playing a very relevant 1-0 overtime game. Won by the Wolves, but then the Avalanche win game 2 6-2. They win game 3 4-3. I know it will come up, the game-winning goal from today's game in that Avalanche Wolves game. I think that the only thing that we can say about it is it's a close call, right? It's one of those that you hate to be on the wrong side of it, and you love to be on the right side of it because it factored into the result of the series. And I hope that for the Wolves, obviously it will sting, and it will sting for a while, right? But I hope that they do find closure in, I think Anthony touched on this a number of times in this podcast, just the turnaround from last year to this year.
And
just like 87.
Almost all their players, 05s and 06. Dominic Stomachev is one of their leading scorers. 06. He's an 06 birth year. Yeah. You have RJ Sember's younger brother Ryan, who's an 06. He was a great defenseman this year. Yeah. So I think the fact that you have such a young team play so well. I mean, obviously not everybody, stays with the junior team. You might have some players going elsewhere, but if you have, just a couple of those guys sticking around, they're not, whether they come back for the EHLP or even if they make the jump to the EHL, you're going to have some guys who are going to be the core of that organization And
Yes.
I mean, I think New England is in for a couple of really good seasons.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the tough thing with being at the premier level though, too, right? I mean, you outplay that level, you're going to the EHL, you're moving up. So that's a huge credit to Connor Bates, Lou Luttrell, like the turnaround, like you said, Neil, from last year to this year. Huge.
Yeah, and it's I've watched the goal a number of times, and it's just tough, right? Because again, like I said before, to be on one side, it's you view it as a kick. On the other side, you view it as just turning your skate to try and corral
Stopping into the
possession
puck.
and stopping into it, right? Like, I mean, I grew up. I don't know why, but I'm not a goalie. I wasn't a goalie. Never was gonna be a goalie. But I just loved Dominic Hasek growing up, right?
Oh,
So like I
didn't we
wasn't
all?
really
He was
I
amazing.
wasn't really a Sabres fan, right?
Right.
I like the Bruins because I'm from here. I like the Red Wings because my dad's from Michigan. Hasek eventually ended up in Michigan. But the long story short is, I mean, Brett Hull scored a goal that went through the side of the net. I mean, like that was 1990.
That was back when you couldn't have your skates in the crease. Remember that whole rule too? But at that age, we became like fans of individual players. Neil, I was the same way.
And like, okay, can the Wolves find any better feelings from the Brett Hull story they just told? Probably not, right?
No.
But the point is like it happens. Like it's it's unfortunately the nature of it. I mean, I hope that Carson Whitman had a fantastic EHL career, but he'll never forget the breakaway chance he had in overtime against the Avalanche to send his team to the Frozen Finals.
Had he not scored in regulation earlier in the game, they would have been in overtime.
And that's the toughest thing about sports is you just there are so many moments that put you in the position to be in the heartbreak position, right? And you can't look back and be proud of what got you there. You can't, because you can only see
the finish
and how it hurts, right? But for the Wolves, like, yeah, I mean that's a tough way for you to lose. But we touched on this division at length during the regular season. The Avalanche got thrown into the play-in game, right? They went from the play-in game to the finals. I mean, and we got history to watch too. I mean, you go to the EHL website, you find the EHLP archive of the all-time records. Last season, Trent King set the record for most points in an EHLP postseason with 15. Hunter Atkinson has 14.
Woo.
John DeRico has 12.
He's on pace to break that.
John DeRico has 12. Zach Needham has 12. They may be 1, 2, and 3 after this week all ends.
It's
right?
insane.
It is insane. So
just remember, share the puck, boys. You're on the same team.
Yeah,
the goal is to win a championship.
Yes, break the record.
I don't think they have any problem sharing the puck now, Jeff.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I mean it's
working for them.
And like again, just to bring it all full circle, I know from the outside looking in, it looks like a chalk year for the EHL when you have three organizations that have both teams there. And then the organizations that only have one team there are organizations that are frequent flyers of the finals, right? But
pun intended.
But like, yes, another pun that I had no idea.
Look at you, Neil. Like, are you fired up? I mean, are you fired up?
Oh man, we'll see when I get down there, right?
Oh, it's you, Alo.
But I want everyone to know that for the EHL, for the Avalanche, the Rangers, the Railers, the Little Flyers, and for the EHLP, the Avalanche, the Rangers, the Railers, the 87s, it was a grind to get there.
Grueling.
For all 8 teams. It was not as clean as it may look from the outside looking in. Like it was.
Right. And when you look at the box scores, it shows that it wasn't 5-0, 6-0. It wasn't like just absolute blowouts. Shake your hands, clean them dry, and move on. No, absolutely not. Yeah. 7 out of the 12, is that the number you gave us? Went to
7 to 12,
game
7 to 12, and 5 of 9, right? And one good laugh before we move on to the fantasy. Thank God for the Little Flyers and for Caleb Cathcart. They were up 3-1 when he hit the crossbar in the empty net at the end of game 3 just now. Did you guys see that?
No, I didn't. I was driving.
No, I saw a player on the Avalanche though. I forget who it is, and maybe it's a good thing, so I don't put them individually on blast. they had iced the puck, and the puck was sitting in the crease, and the kid hit it off the right post.
Oh, well,
It
who was
was
the
like
player on?
it was a Patrick Stefan level miss.
Well, was that the Edmonton player?
Yes.
Okay.
But just like Dallas, they ended up winning the game. So I think the players can maybe rib him a little bit, for missing that shot.
He's been ripped to shreds.
Again, don't know who the player is, and it's better that way, so I don't put them on blast. But like even the Wolves announcers were just so surprised, and I had my hand over my mouth, like, oh my God, if the Wolves tie it.
Yeah. Well, and that's why you can go watch the Caleb Cathcart one later. They were up by 2, and he just flipped it, and it hit the crossbar, and then went up, and then came down, and I was like, if Maryland pulls off 2 goals here in the next 25 seconds, first off, it'll be an utter miracle, right? But like, how do you sleep at night?
Second off, we might not have Mark Catron in this world anymore.
my favorite, actually, one more quick
one. Lose
one.
our pal.
Jack Foote had a good one back in I think it was the first round against the Little Flyers, where he launched a puck from his own blue, or inside his own blue line, on the fly, hit the elbow of the top left post, where the post and the crossbar meet up.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was like a 160-foot shot, and he nearly roofed it.
Yeah, he's a strong kid. We saw him at Exeter for the All-Star game. He's a big dog, so no shock there.
Well, again,
it's that time. Are we getting our trophies out?
Well, yeah, I guess we get to get our own trophy first, Jeff. So let's jump to fantasy.
It's time for the eCrew Fantasy Challenge.
The eCrew Fantasy Challenge is presented by BioSteel, the sports drink of the EHL. Use the promo code ESHOW, that's ESHOW, for 25% off when you check out at biosteel.com.
It got a little hairy, though, Jeff.
Mm-hmm. It did. Multiple times.
Team HNIB collected 42.4 points in the last week of the Fantasy Challenge. A goal, 2 assists, and a power play point for Morley Phillips. 2 goals, 2 assists, and a power play point for Kyle Dan. 2 goals, 3 assists for Hunter Atkinson. 3 assists and 1 on the power play for Aiden Swain. I mean, those guys alone, 8, 11, 12, 7 fantasy points. Nothing from Corbin Mealy, and then Lincoln Crosby got you 4.4 playing just in game 1 of that EHL series against the Little Flyers. So 42.4, if we didn't,
very good week.
If we didn't nearly match it, Jeff, I mean, it would have got really, really close.
We would have been hosed.
Yeah. Tristan D'Elia got us a power play assist. Nate Palumbo got us a power play goal. Max Finkelday, speaking of records, when you go on that EHLP all-time page, there are 5 different players that have put up 7 goals in a single EHLP postseason, 3 of which are still active in this current EHLP postseason, and then the 4th is Max Finkelday. So, I mean, a credit to him. He had a great postseason for the Huntsmen. He got us 2 goals. JJ Creighton, a goal and an assist and a power play point. And Tristan Fatadad, Jeff, we kind of picked him saying, like, if Seacoast was able to knock off the Avalanche, it was going to be because Fatadad, and he got a win, the game 1 win.
Overtime helped us too, bud.
Yep, and 98 saves, so 13.8 there.
Yeah,
so the 32.8. So here, Jeff, we'll do the calculator one more time to see how close this thing really got.
One more time. All right, Justin, that's it. Cut it off. Cut my mic. Yes.
945.2 to 915.4.
Your final discrepancy was 29.8, and we were up by
got it to within 30.
We were up by a football field and a half a football field at one point. I think it was like 150, 160.
That's pulling the goaltender and hitting the post with 30 seconds left.
Thank you, HNIB, because for a long time, me and Neil were very worried that this was just going to be a runaway, but you guys did your work, did your research, and it made it very, very, very interesting.
Yep. And if it is a best of 3 series, it means that you guys win next year. So, like all the series we just had to get to game 3. Yeah. So
we had new wrinkles every
year. Actually, and because you guys are talking about Max Finkelday, I just want to also give a shout out to his father Jurg because he came from the island of Mauritius, which is, I think, 9,200 miles from New Jersey / Exon, Pennsylvania. And if you really, because he said 10,000, and I actually used that in my goal call when Max scored. He also told me the native pronunciation in Namibia is Finkeldai.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but he said Finkeldai was okay, but
Okay.
he said if you want to do the native pronunciation, I mean, but like
Finkeldai.
Jurgen, just an amazing human being, and for Max, it was his age out season. He's been getting looks from Division I, Division II club teams, I've been told, by both his father and the Huntsman coach Blaze Kilroy. So I really do hope to see him land at a good school because he is a hell of a hockey player, and for him to play his first year on ice at the EHLP, that's still a high level of hockey to play your first season of ice.
Yes.
That's insane.
It is pretty crazy to wrap your head around
Good for him.
like his story, just what his story was. And a phenomenal year for that program. I know they're the one sweep of all the divisions, right?
But the one expansion team to make it to the division final.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going into the EHL next year. And I know that Zach Overholtz, a big fan of the podcast, already said we're already working, right? And you know what? Challenge on. I hope you are, because we saw just how tough that division is at the EHL level this year when it came down to a 3 and a 4. And the Little Flyers are a 3 seed going to the Frozen Finals. So Huntsman, take on the challenge. Get there at both levels. Be a double like we have with the Railers, the Rangers, and the Avalanche. So but awesome fantasy year. I have to admit, when I first came up with the idea for Team OG, which I did not think would turn into
original
old guys.
Gangsters.
I did not think it would turn into old guys as quickly as it did. Got the graphic.
Shout out to Justin for that great graphic back in September.
Yeah, where I looked like Bill Belichick. Jeez, I mean,
Jeff looking like Brett Schreider.
I look like my dad, honestly, too. It's crazy. It's creepy.
It was cool though. I mean, I think it worked out. It worked out pretty well, and I hope that we get to do it again.
Yep. Good job, buddy. We got to win.
I hope we get to.
We'll shake your hand.
Yes.
Good game, Captain Doug.
We hope we get to do Team HNIB versus Team OG again next year. We just don't want to pick it for the finals because we're all working the finals.
They're professional.
We're all unbiased broadcasters at the finals. But
we guys and girls. Yep,
we will still give somewhat of a prediction, and we're going to do that now in our What to Watch For segment.
Before we wrap things up, here's what to watch for this week in the E-Show.
What to Watch For is presented by Hockey TV, the official streaming platform for your EHL and EHLP action throughout the 2022-2023 season.
What you got, Kamish?
Well, it's not like a prediction where we're going to say so-and-so is going to win, right?
Oh, I'm not doing that.
Just like last season. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the biggest storyline that you're watching for, right? So it's not that we're gonna all eat great food because I already ordered that, so I know that's gonna be the case, right? No, that's not. I will say the biggest storyline for me, in my opinion, is how wide open the EHLP is. I think any of the 4 teams can truly win it. I know that there's a favorite in the Rangers, but I think that what I saw in the postseason tells me that if on Sunday we're handing a further trophy to the Rangers or the 87s or the Avalanche or the Railroad, none of those teams would surprise me. So that's my storyline.
I mean,
I love a thinking, Jeff.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking out the window, looking at that sun, looking at that blue sky. Love daylight saving. I mean, like we said with the EHL, I mean, since you in the EHLP, Neil, we got 3 old dogs, we got 3 OGs, old guys, if you will, and we got 1 newish dog that's still waiting for their first title.
Yep.
So, I mean, can the Railers get it done? I mean, they were real close last year. do they use last year's heartbreak and anger, and maybe they use that guardian angel up above to help them out a little bit. When you brought that Rangers, I forgot about that Big Mike kid. I mean, that gave me chills, and I'm getting chills again thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, can they get over the hump? They've been monsters at the Premier and EHL levels, regular season wise, and mostly for the most part postseason wise. But as we've talked about, one of the common themes of this episode is finishing.
Yep.
Can the Railers finish? And can they get their first EHL Cup? Or is it going to be Little Flyers, Avs, Rangers that haven't won? So Rangers haven't won since the COVID year. Avs won.
Haven't won since 2019.
2019. Oh, it's been a little bit. And then the Little Flyers haven't won since Rocky Russo days.
They've never won the championship.
Oh, they've never won the championship either. Oh,
right.
That was Junior Flaw. Oh, yes, that was the
yes.
that was Jerry's World. Sorry, I'm bringing up. Oh, I'm bringing up bad memories.
It's not going to be a warm embrace.
Woo! I'm gonna just don't hold the door. I'm leaving my screen right now. Wow, yeah, so that's right. As many times as they've been there, they haven't won it either. So yeah, all right. So Railers, Little Flyers, can they both get over the hump and finally get their first EHL Cups? Little Flyers, I guess, more because they've been around since the very beginning. Railers expansion, but I think they're still want to show that they can finish. I know that they do, and they want to do it for Big Mike. So long-winded, but there you go.
Well, and then before we get to Anthony, I forget the other line, but Alo was texting Jeff and I in the building last year about how much he hated Providence.
And I brought up to him, I said, Dan Marino said the same thing about Foxborough Stadium years ago. He said, I would love to be the man that drives that wrecking ball through that stadium because he had such bad numbers. And he goes, I am Dan Marino then for Schneider Arena. I want to knock it the F down. I was like,
every time they kick me out, they wrote me back in, right? Like, so that's how Alo's feeling right now. Back in Providence again. Anthony, your storyline.
I mean, there are so many good ones to choose from, but one thing I'll be interested to see, we could very well see an exact rematch at both levels of 2021.
We could.
We could potentially see 87's Railers at EHLP.
Oh,
wow. And we could see
Rangers
BJR in New Hampshire in the finals. Not saying that's going to happen, but
we got replay for offsides.
And the episode, Jeff.
All right, hey. I mean, I'm getting punched by Chris Sorella, and then I'm getting a left hook from Big C. And then
speaking of the Avs, the Dan brothers, because both of them have been big parts of their teams at the EHL and P levels.
Yep.
So it might not be Scott and Rob Niedermeyer 2007 Ducks, so to say, because they're technically on two different teams. They're playing for the same organization, but
yes,
that's another thing to watch out for.
So, all great storylines. We will obviously all be there. We have Tyler doing the play-by-play with Jeff on color and PA for all of the EHL games.
That's
Anthony, play-by-play with Chris Russo on color for all of the EHLP games. Chris will be doing the Inside the Glass for the EHLP or EHL. Jake for the EHLP. Jake and his brother Mike running the pregame show every day. Post-game press conferences. I mean, I'm gonna get some flack, Jeff. On the second day, I get to interview Mark Kumpel in a post-game press conference, who is the interim coach right now for the Boston Junior Rangers. The Frozen Finals.
And we talked earlier, I'll be totally honest, I actually didn't realize that Kumps was coaching the Rangers Premier, so I'm pumped to see Kumps back.
I get to interview the guy who I came up with this idea of the event with. It's gonna be an awesome week. It's really gonna be an absolutely awesome week. For those that are coming down, we will be selling plenty of apparel. We also have a silent auction going this year.
Oh,
Yes, this was something that came totally out of nowhere. A company called KDK Sports reached out to me. They are providing all of the autographed memorabilia and all that stuff. And you want to come down, you want to win, or I guess buy something pretty nice. By all means. I got extra championship hats this year. So after we pass out the ones on the ice, fans of those teams that won had the chance to buy them right there. So
sweet.
I have no pucks this year, guys, because they got stolen last year. Every time a puck with the logo went in the crowd, we never got it back, right? So we're going blank black pucks this year, just so everyone can be prepared for that.
Keep it simple.
But it's gonna be awesome. We're recording this Monday, dropping it Tuesday as we always do, and then dropping the puck on Wednesday, kicking this whole thing off with Rangers versus Railers at the EHL level. It's just so fitting. That's how we start the finals this year. And I know the Odessa family feels the same way I do about that. So looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow and getting this 5th edition of the EHL Frozen Finals.
Also,
series.
Jeff, I'm not gonna steal any cough drops from you. I'm gonna, because a couple weeks ago
I just bought a new bag of 80, Anthony.
I got one of those family size bags. I'm gonna go.
My man.
I'm gonna go and pick up another bag before I leave with Chris tomorrow morning.
My man. Well, I got a new 80 pack too, so I got you, buddy.
Yeah. Okay, you're both covered. So we're all set. We're all ready to go. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. I hope to see everyone listening to this podcast on Wednesday as well. It's time for the Frozen Finals. Let's make it happen.
It's time. Let's go.
Thanks for listening to The E-Show. Learn more at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when next week's podcast is released. Welcome to The E-Show with Neil Ravin. Founded in 2013, the EHL has become the college placement leader on the East Coast. Sit back and learn more about the next step in your junior hockey career.
Welcome to the E-Show, presented by the Penalty Box Foundation. The Foundation's mission centers around their daily motto, we take care of our own, as they help out all of those within the hockey community who've experienced a catastrophic event. Learn more at penaltyboxfoundation.org. What's up? My name is Neil Ravin, and this is episode number 161 of the E-Show. On this week's episode, we recap the 2023 EHL Frozen Finals, the 5th edition of the league's annual championship event. It was a week to remember in Providence, Rhode Island, as the EHL and EHLP combined to bring us tremendous action throughout the 5-day stretch. Ultimately, it was the Boston Junior Rangers winning it all in the EHL, and the New Jersey 87 skating away victoriously in the EHLP. With each championship, both the Rangers and 87's franchises have each now won 3 titles in 3 years, with the Rangers going EHL, EHLP, EHL, and the 87s going EHLP, EHL, EHLP. This week's episode is brought to you by Hockey Tech, the developers for the new EHL app, available now in both Apple and Google stores. And with that, let's bring in Jeff and Anthony. It's officially the off season, guys.
I know. I was gonna send you guys a text today and say, what time's face off today?
Like
first game?
When things like this in life happen and it takes like multiple days for it to set in. Mm-hmm. Like it's just where we're at right now. We're in that period of things still setting in. Yeah. Right. But we obviously have no weekly rundown fantasy challenge or what to watch for this week because the season's over. So it's all just one big Frozen Finals recap. And I'm going to start by saying that was it the 5th year? This was the 5th year, right?
At Providence?
It was the 4th year at Providence, 5th year
of Frozen Finals in general, yeah.
So, the 5th edition of the event was fantastic.
It was.
Well, can I just add that My mind still can't comprehend that the season's over. My body absolutely can. Yes.
I would agree with you, Anthony. My voice is not recovered yet from all that talking, but yeah, I feel the same way, bud.
So it's yeah, like Jeff said, the fourth time he had in Providence, the one time he didn't was in Westchester. But let's start recapping it because I think the playoff run gave it a good build up to be excited for, and then once we got there, it just didn't disappoint either, right? So
No.
obviously for the EHL, we finished with 14 best of 3 series, right? When
Yep.
you factor in the first round, the second round, and the 2 series that we had in Providence. The fact that 8 of them went to a game 3, and we were very close to a 9th game 3, is just insane. Like,
wild, as you like to say, Neil.
it's absolutely wild, right? So I mean, like first that Rangers Railers series, which was the first game each day. I guess the first person I have to give a shout out to, and we'll do it again after the EHL championship game too, is David Filak. I mean, their backs were immediately against the wall for the second straight series, like when they lost game 1 of the East Division final to the Express. And I mean, after that, Filak was virtually unbeatable.
He was, yeah,
right. Like
finished with 7 wins in the postseason.
Yeah,
save percentage was above 950. I mean, I mentioned it to Tyler. I'm not sure if it was a hard choice, right, between Boschert and Filak for goalie of the year. I mentioned it on our broadcast. Maybe Filak, not sure. I don't know him personally well enough, but I don't know if he used maybe that as some motivation that he didn't win goaltender of the year.
Yeah.
We all know Rich DiCaprio very well. I think he thought that David should have been the goaltender of the year. And yeah, sometimes that can fuel you and motivate you to a long postseason run. And he got him all the way to the end. He was excellent, fought through injuries. I mean, Rich talked to you about it in his post-game press conference, right, Neil, about how they managed his practice time. How he really just, what was it, once a week, I think he got on the ice practice wise. But for him to still be as sharp as he was with that little time, Rich said he didn't need the practice time, that he was confident he could stop all the pucks he needed to, and fought through injuries and got them right to the very end. And they hoisted the EHL Cup for the second time in 3 years.
And you were right, Jeff. 7 wins, which matches the 7 wins that Nate Miller put up 2 years ago. Right? So
common denominator with the Rangers when they win cups is extremely good goaltending.
And if Rich listens to this episode, he'll be prepared for after this week we start doing the team of the week features, right? So obviously we'll start with the Rangers and we'll go one at a time throughout the summer. I am going to immediately put Rich on the spot and say, I'll let you guys answer this first for him, right? If you're the Rangers and you had a 1 game like something tomorrow, right?
Yep.
Stanley Cup's on the line.
Like a decisive game 3.
Yes, like the Stanley Cup's on the line for whatever reason, right?
Monty calls and says, "Hey, I want to go play a junior team to warm up before the playoffs."
Yeah, exactly, right? Nolan Egbert, Billy Gerard, Nate Miller, David Filak.
Now, are you taking, I mean, those guys are all in college now. Miller was in his freshman year. Egbert and Gerard have been phenomenal. Yeah. One college scout said to me, I forget who it was this week, that they think Billy Gerard's the best goalie in all of Division III hockey. And he was the best goalie in junior hockey. So he's continued that. I mean, are we taking that into consideration, or are we just...
I'm just saying Egbert won the 2017-18 Goalie of the Year award, right? Gerard was goalie of the year with Tobias Falkenstadt in 2019-20. Nate Miller won it in back-to-back years, right? 2020-21 and 21-22. And then David Filak just made his case that maybe it could have been him over Boschert at 1 and 1A. I'm saying if you're Rich and you have to answer that question and you have 1 game tomorrow against the Boston Bruins, there you go, Jeff. Who are you picking to be the goalie in that game? Egbert, Gerard, Miller, Felak.
I don't know if Rich gives you an answer on that one because he likes them all.
I'm gonna put. We're not gonna end the
We're doing it.
recording until I have the answer to that question, right?
And you know me, I hate freaking brackets. I hate being put on the spot. And
Anthony can go first.
yeah, Anthony, you can go right ahead, man.
I mean, I've only really seen Nate Miller and Felak play in person. That was when I really started going to showcases, started seeing, all the teams in the EHL, not just the one in my division. I mean, I feel like Miller had a weaker offensive team, so the fact that he was still picking up all those wins meant that he really had to be flawless. And I think in that regard, maybe I'd go with Miller. No disrespect to Felak because he was brilliant this postseason, made the saves when it mattered most. But if I were to be put on the spot, I might still go with Miller.
Okay.
I mean, and I don't have that choice of being. I've seen them all play because I've been lucky enough to be around since the existence of this wonderful hockey league. Happy birthday yet again, EHL! 10 years. I kind of want to leave Billy Gerard because he was there 2 years. He was a force. I love Nate Miller. Felak was only a one and done, so I feel like we didn't get to see enough of him. Obviously, we just saw him on the highest of stages, and he passed the test with flying colors, especially against a very potent New Hampshire Avalanche team that had 4 unbelievable lines of forwards, and they just couldn't beat him more than twice in the championship game. And yeah, I think I'd go Billy Gerard, Neil.
Okay.
How about you, if you were to choose?
I agree with a lot of what Anthony said. I think the second year Rangers team was probably of the 4 offenses the weakest. So for him to nearly carry them back to the finals that year, I'd probably lean him. The first year, the offense was pretty potent when you have Andy Moore, Connor Bazal, Joey Schaefer, Nathan Young, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
No, Drew Clow. I thought this year's Avalanche team kind of reminded me of that team. Neil and Anthony, honestly, with the offensive depth. Because me and Tyler talked about it. Angelopoulos, Victor, guys on that New Hampshire 3rd and 4th line weren't true, bottom 6 guys. They were top 6 guys. That was the case for Rich with all those names you just mentioned. We were just talking about that, I think, before one of his games, how Andy Moore was a 3rd liner, and now he's up at the USHL, soon to be my Northeastern Huskies at some point.
Yep.
Bazal, Malandrukalo, Schaefer, like you just said, Younger, all those guys. That team was just what Hedepreen was a good late deadline addition. So yeah, that team was just juiced with offense for Nate Miller. There's no doubt why that team won. They were just so good in all areas, forward, defense, and goaltending.
Sure.
But give this year's team credit. They didn't really, I know I've gotten called out before for saying this, but I think it's a great adjective. They weren't really like sexy on paper, I don't think.
No.
But guys really turned it up come postseason time. Tay Mellis put it into a second gear. Brett Beal fighting through injury will put it into a second gear. We saw a lot from Nedelka, good defenseman that Rich got at the end of the year. How about Caleb Miller? Holy smokes, that story was
I was going to get to that next because
unbelievable.
After they lose game 1 on Wednesday to fall behind for the second straight series and not really seem phased at all, right?
Oh.
Caleb Miller comes out in his first game in a couple weeks, right? For game 2 and scores the only goal of the game, right? Which is just like, I know we've joked on this podcast about how I personally don't believe in jinxes and being superstitious and this and that, but I believe in fate and the fact that he hadn't. I mean, let's see, his last game prior to game 2, right, was back on March 5th, right? Yeah. So that was his first playoff game, and he scores the only goal of the game in a 1-0 victory for the Rangers. And pause for a quick trivia, right? The Rangers win that game. Anthony, you may have been in the press conference room with me for that. So you probably know the answer to this trivia question. Well, when the Rangers won that game, what victory number was that for them in franchise history at Schneider Arena?
Ooh. EHL
EHL.
and EHLP, just
Just
EHL.
EHL.
Is that
Ooh.
their 10th win?
No, I'm talking like we're talking just EHL and in their EHL team's history of the Frozen Finals. How many games after Thursday ended had they won in Providence?
I don't remember.
Is it a lot or a little?
It's a little.
Tell me that was their first.
That was their first ever victory in Providence.
Wow.
Because if you think back on it, their first trip to Providence was the very first year where we had a round robin still. And they went 0 0-3, 17-18.
Yep.
The
and
next
of course,
time they went to the
COVID
Frozen
year,
Finals was in Westchester.
Right. Yeah, because you got the COVID year and the Westchester year in there.
They won 2 of the 3 in the round robin and then won the championship. Okay, yeah. But then they come back to Providence. This is their 3rd time ever in the Frozen Finals, and they lost the first one, right?
Yep.
So all the way to Thursday, they had never won a game in that building before. That, like, wrap your head around that.
Yeah.
And then Ayla Miller's the one that scores the game winner. You can't
Miller
tell me that sports don't have, that fate doesn't come out in sports.
No,
that was fate.
Does. It absolutely does. I agree 100%. I had chills when that happened. And Miller, another guy that, like Rich said, he only got into 33 games out of the 46 this year. So he sat out 13 games, had 11 points, solid, nothing spectacular. But I remember Rich talking to me about him at a showcase because I do remember him scoring a really nice goal, one of his 3 goals on the year. And he said, yeah, he's just a guy I can he's very coachable. He's always like, whatever you need, coach, he can move up the lineup, down the lineup. Just really liked his skill set. And yeah, for him when he came back, he said, Coach, I don't know if there's a spot for me, but I'm back. I'm here. And he goes, yeah, I mean, Beeler's hurt. So guess what? You're going on the first line when I need you. So yeah, there's definitely a spot for you. I mean, the other thing that's crazy about this too, Neil and Anthony, is remember back to the Westchester series, they lost their first game against the Lumberjacks. Yeah. A bit of controversy in there with maybe a whistle that was blown or not.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rich, gotta bring it up. Bad times, good times. That you still prevailed. But then they didn't look back after that. They were able to get through the rest of the round robin and get to the championship. They never lost again. Yeah. So yeah, Coach,
you gotta lose the first game if you're the Rangers, right? So but let's pause there for a second, because obviously I want to get to something about Friday once we get caught up with the Little Flyers Avalanche series, which yes, it ended in 2 days, Wednesday, Thursday, right? But really, you take away the first period of game 1, and for 5 periods, it was a 7-6 series, I guess you could say, right? Because it was 1-1 the rest of game 1 in the final 40 minutes, and then it was 6-5, and probably the craziest game of the weekend. I think we can all agree on that in game 2. So it really was even. And
Philly had multiple leads in that last game too. I mean, it was 1-1 after 1. They were up 3-1 in the second.
Yeah.
And then New Hampshire comes back to tie it at 3-3 before the end of the second. Then Philly's up 5-3, not even 2 minutes in to the third period. They scored 31 seconds in and a minute 13 in. And we were like, I
was making my way back. I was making my way back to the press box right as the third period started. And I'm thinking, if I miss 30, 45 seconds of the period, whatever, I won't miss much. And I'm behind the Flyers goal on the concourse, and I just see that tap in, that tic-tac-toe play. And I'm just like, oh boy. I go back up. I'm like, okay, now let me get the tweet out. Let me, summarize the play so I can get it ready for the recap. And then another goal happened. And I'm just thinking, what the hell is happening right now?
A team that nobody expected out of the South, between Pro Tech, New Jersey, Team Maryland, Little Flyers, and Philly Hockey Club. None of us had PLF picked on our brackets, did we?
The other thing, too, last season, if I'm not mistaken, because Philadelphia made it to the Frozen Finals last season.
Yep.
And I think they lost to the Avalanche, their first round robin game.
The Railers, their first round.
It was the Railers, but then they lost to the 87s, and I think that was like a 5 or 6-2 score. The 87s really kind of put the beat down on them offensively, where it looked like they didn't really belong.
Right.
Game 1 looks like the same thing. It looks like that. Kind of like what Alo always says. Little Flyers hate Schneider Arena, where it seemed like again they're just gonna kind of go out on a whimper, but
Right.
Game 2, I know that they didn't win, but I mean they put up a
Hell of
heck
an
of a
effort.
fight, and they look like the team that won the division.
Yeah.
And I feel like with Philly, it just was that team battled all year, and I think that those battles that they were in particular, that whole second half of the season, right, to dig out of that tough first half of the season that they had, I think that maybe caught up to them. Louis Finnegan had played a lot of hockey at that point. Everybody had played a lot of hockey at that point, and New Hampshire was a team that didn't get into many adversity battles throughout the year, and I think they were a little fresher out of the two, and they just kind of brought it and they closed it out. And unfortunately, that was it was just not enough for Philadelphia. And your heart breaks for Mark Catron, Anthony LaRusso, Mike Narrigan, and the rest of that team because they were damn close yet again. And we would have loved to have seen another game 3. I mean, how many, like you said, Neil, between the game 3s, the overtimes all year long, between showcase play, regular season, playoffs, it just showed you how deep this league was. And to have some lower seeds like the Philadelphia Little Flyers get there, that was huge. That was great for the league to see that it's not just chalk. It's not just the top seeds advancing to the championship. It's teams like Philly that just absolutely battled their way and got there. They were just a little too short.
It felt like we were going to have 2 game 3s, though. When they were up by 2 early on in the third, I was like, we're going to have 2 game 3s. And
11-2.
2 drastically different series. But obviously the Avalanche make their comeback, win it late, and in doing so, told us that we only had 1 game 3. And we're going to get to the EHLP after we get to, I want to just get to Sunday first. And with only having 1 game 3, that gave us the chance to get out there and wheel around on Friday morning. And I think I'm still a little sore from that, to be totally honest. Yeah. Maybe I climbed the staircase.
I think that's the biggest reason why I'm feeling the fatigue. Was that little skating session we had.
It was all the broadcasting and reporting and pregame and postgame and writing that we all did. It was that 45-minute session. We were all joking after, right? What did we actually only played like 20, 25 minutes because we kind of warmed up and screwed around for about 20 minutes or so. And I was sweating my butt off. That was the first time I had skated in I think 4 years. So
yeah, so it was fun to get out there.
It was. Thank you, Neil, for doing that for us. Anthony's move against Tyler. Holy
we crap. Will be posting that. We'll be
yes,
posting
we
that
will.
Following the posting of this episode as well.
Kicking scoot, Anthony DePaulo. Tsunami jersey on with his name on the back, looking fresh. Awesome. I was the only part of the. I was grandfathered in. I had no visor because I am.
You had the Marchand jersey on.
My Marshy jersey, my yellow bucket. Coach DiCaprio was not a big fan of the yellow bucket. He's like, Jefferson, what was up that yellow helmet you have? I was like, I got it years ago, Rich. You kidding me?
Well, I mean, it was funny because it was Neil, it was you and Jeff versus me and Trevor, and then
if you want to call it that.
And then
Haley was always on offense.
So. Haley was the automatic offense. Yeah, automatic offense.
And I had actually set up Haley for a couple of goals.
You did?
And then Neil was just trying to go coast to coast. So then that was kind of the reason why I broke at that move where I thought to myself, got to a point where I'm just like, you know what, 2 can play at that game.
Ooh,
so
challenge
I knew that I wanted to do the move. I go in and I see Tyler getting ready to go for the poke check. I see him kind of pull his stick back, getting the blocker up to the very end of his stick. So I'm just like, oh, I think I got this. Went between the legs. And my biggest concern was just getting the puck off the ice, because sometimes when I go for that shot, it'll sneak under like the toe of my stick where I might not be able to get any air under it. Yeah. But I look back and I see I got it, and I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, I pulled it off.
And you had quite the amount of cheers. We had a little bit of railers and rangers. We had coaching staffs. We had some kids that were doing like a tour. There were all sorts of kids.
I mean, they thought you were Brad Marchand, Jeff.
Yeah, I walked in and I got a standing ovation. I was like, guys, this is not the real 63 in black and gold. I can promise you that.
Aren't you taller than him?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm 6'1". What's Marshy?
Not 6'1".
I'm 6'1", 215. I think he's like 5 something.
He's closer to my height than he is to Jeff's height.
Yeah.
It was fun to get out there, though.
It was a blast.
And it allowed us to adjust the schedule a little bit to give those 2 teams a little extra time to rest and recover and be ready for Game 3, which we pushed back from 11 a.m. to 12:30 for the Railers and Rangers. And I do think that the Rangers scoring 24 seconds in made all the difference because it gave them the instant momentum, and it made the Railers feel like a team that hadn't scored in forever, it felt like at the time, right? Because they had got shut out in Game 2, and they just had to grip their stick tighter all of a sudden now it's 2-0. And they fought back hard. They really did fight back hard. But ultimately it was just too big of a mountain to climb. And then we got our 2021 rematch set in Rangers versus Avalanche. So we knew that around 3:00 on Friday, which I actually liked the way that it all played out, because then we got to really turn our full attention towards the EHLP for the rest of Friday and into Saturday. And at that time, like after what had taken place in the opening games, everything was wide open in the EHLP, right? Because the Railers had won a 1-goal game over the Avalanche, and the Rangers and 87s had arguably one of the most thrilling 1-1 ties we've ever been a part of.
Everyone's standing around, they're like, "That's it.
Why are we tied?" Everyone wanted to keep going, right? But at that time on Friday, we were like, all right, everyone's still alive, right? And Anthony, you got to call those games. Did it feel like there was a lack of offense for a while?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. There was a big lack of offense. I mean, BJR, they couldn't really get anything going offensively for most of that game against the 87s. It took a 6-on-4 power play to finally get one. It was a great passing play, from Swiss to Mulligan, one-touch pass right to Drake Tomac, the EHLP forward of the year. That was the tying goal. But then they got shut out by the Avalanche. And the Avalanche, too, like their top line, Atkinson, Needham, and John D'Erico, there were stretches where it looked like they weren't really as dominant as they were in the first 2 rounds. Also, I think Boston's next goal, which was against the, I think it was against the Railers, where it was a 5-on-3 power play. They pulled the goaltender, and I pointed out on the broadcast, because this is the final day of the round robin, that their only 2 goals at that point were on the power play and when they pulled the goalie.
Yeah, that's true. Which is crazy to think about for arguably the most potent offense of all 4 of them heading into the finals, right? But we knew after that Railers victory over the 87s on Friday night that the Railers, no matter what, were in the championship game on Sunday. We also knew that the Rangers were still alive. They just needed a lot of help for things to go their way a certain way. And the 87s and Avalanche were still alive, probably with a better chance than the Rangers were at, obviously. So you get to the press conferences on Friday. Of all the answers I got to a question, I think John Feinlease, what he said to me on Friday night, was arguably one of the best answers. I asked him point blank, tomorrow against the Rangers, which was Saturday, how do you approach that game? Because they already known that they were in, right? And he said, we're going to play to win. And then I said, okay. I mean, because he kept it really short like that. And I said, okay, I'm going to try and get him on his toes again. And I said, all right, Aiden Healy or Don Waleka tomorrow. And he just looked at me and said, TBD. And I was like, all right, I think the interview's over now because I'm not going to get any more information out of him. And I wonder next, guys, we're going to get to Sunday and how the game went to double overtime, but I almost wonder, did the Railers expend too much energy on that Saturday against the Rangers? It did knock out their rival, right? Their victory to go 3-0 in the round robin knocked out their rival Rangers, but thinking back, did they expend too much energy in that game?
It's a good thought. I didn't think that. Anthony's shaking his head saying no.
I don't think so. I don't think so, because I mean, everyone played the same amount of round robin games, and it's not like the Railers went into overtime before that.
Mhm.
The only team that had gone into overtime were the 87s and Junior Rangers at that point. And I think for the Railers too, they just exposed a Boston team that was going through a dry spell offensively at the worst time.
Yep.
When it mattered most. So I don't know if I'd say that. And plus, they did start Walicka. And I think for Walicka too, I think he just had a real chip on his shoulder because the last time he had played was when the Railers took a 3-0 lead in game 2 against Boston in the division final. Boston scored 4 goals on 10 shots. So 7 goals in the first period. Railers saw a 3-0 lead turn into a 4-3 deficit, and then they went back to Healy. And I had mentioned a couple of times on the broadcast that both goaltenders are going into Providence with a save percentage below 900. That was the culprit, that game too. And I said, that is a stat killer, that kind of game.
Yep.
And I think for Walicka to have a really good game where he only let up 1 goal on 24 shots, I think for him that was a bounce back, whether or not it was a meaningful game if they had already clinched. And also, I guess because Boston won the series heading into Providence, I guess they wanted some revenge for that, and they got it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the 3rd straight season one of those teams has ended the other one's season, right?
It's crazy.
It will probably happen again next year, too, just so we're all get ahead of that now, right?
Yeah.
Jeff, you were flawless all weekend, but there was one small mistake.
Ooh.
And I didn't know how to address it on the fly, but you announced the 87's Avalanche starting lineup, and you said the winner of this game goes to the championship game, which not technically, if the game had gone to overtime, the Avalanche would have gotten in because all they needed was the one point, right?
Whoops.
I was waiting for a parent to be like,
misleading information.
That's not true.
Wait, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Or maybe Sean Bertoni in the press box. That is incorrect.
Incorrect.
Not correct.
So it's all good though, Jeff. It's all good because that was, there were like the 6-5 game for the Avalanche and Little Flyers EHL. That last game, knowing it wasn't a true winner goes, but it felt like a winner goes, regardless of if the game had gone to overtime or not. Right. That game between the 87s and Avalanche, for those two teams fighting to get there, was very, very entertaining. And that's really, this is kind of the transition into Championship Sunday, because we went, obviously on Sunday we started with the EHLP game, but it was that game on Saturday when the Zach Gruber show began, right?
Episode started.
Because I don't, did he have a point before that game, Anthony? I don't think he did.
No, he was relatively quiet because Shea Keating scored the only goal against Boston, and then Poligo sent Aiden Healy's water bottle to the rafters.
Yeah,
that second goal off the post hits the bottle, and because that puck went in and out. If it Like, the reason why I knew it was a goal is because I saw that bottle go up.
Yeah.
that
Love the water bottle blast.
So yeah, it wasn't until that next game where Gruber started picking up the points again.
Well, and it's funny because he had 10 points in the 4 playoff games to get the 87s to the finals, right? And then all of a sudden you get there in the first 2 games, you have nothing.
Right.
But then he had a 3-point game and that victory over the Avalanche to help power the 87s into the championship game. And then we get to the championship game. And Anthony, we'll have to figure out what the odds are now of the 2024 EHLP championship game to go to overtime, because it probably has to be minus odds.
We've had 2 straight.
With 2 straight. Now, Could it be any more drastically different, though, in that last year was like, oh, overtime. Oh, it's over.
Done. It was basically just like an extra extension of the third. It wasn't even overtime.
Yeah, and then this year it's like, oh, overtime. Can it ever end?
Each season, each championship game at the EHLP level, there's going to be one more overtime. So last year it was 1 overtime. This year it was 2 overtimes. Next season's going to be triple overtime.
Triple.
You wait.
Well,
yes, our schedule's all up.
if that's the case, then anyone that plans to be in the EHL championship game, just prepare to know that we're moving it back a day. So
Championship Monday.
Championship Monday, exactly. But that game, what a game. What a game. And I think, and I want to get into the conversations that I had with the Railers afterwards. The comparison that the Railers were talking about a lot on their end is it compared, they felt like, to their game with the Rangers at the EHL level that knocked them out. Because the Railers felt like ultimately at the EHL level, what knocked them out was the fact that it was a 4-1 deficit, not 3-1.
Got behind a little too much.
And it was that extra goal, the fourth goal, that made it feel like they couldn't complete like that full climb up the mountain.
Yeah.
And it was the fourth goal that they didn't get in the EHLP championship game that kept the 87s in it. I mean, the fact that they scored all three of their goals in the first period, and then Jason Larico essentially had a shutout the rest of the way because it was over 60 minutes, right? If Gruber doesn't score the game winner, I'd probably make a harder push for Larico to be the MVP because I don't think they win that game without him in net.
No, absolutely not. Like you just said, he literally gave up. And what we always talk about, right? Short-term memory for goaltenders and all players. You give up 3 goals in the first, you're feeling like absolute you know what. And then you're like, nah, never mind. Second period, third period, first overtime, nothing. Into the second overtime, 6 minutes and change in, still nothing. So to give up 3 goals in the first 20 minutes and then go 60, let's do some math on there, 60, almost 67 minutes because that game-winning goal was 6:28. So you shut them out for over a game's worth of hockey after that. So over 50 pucks. So I mean, that was hard, but I mean, Gruber had 4. I know we were doing just Frozen Finals. He had 6 points in the Frozen Finals, but he had 4 different 3-point efforts in that playoffs last year.
Huge.
Just those first 2 games are the only games he didn't have points in. Every other game he had 2 or 3 points. He averaged 2 points per game, finished with, I think it was 16 and what was his final number? It was 16 in 8 games. Yeah. 9 goals, 7 assists. Wow.
As the broadcaster of that game, Anthony, how do you stay on your toes knowing that it's gonna happen at any moment? You just have no idea when it's coming.
I mean, there were multiple breakaways on both sides. There were 2 for the 87s where Nick Schultz fanned on it. We had actually met yesterday, the day after they won the championship, and Chris and I and some of the other guys were kind of ribbing him on that. I was talking with Logan Burgee, where Aiden Healy made the stick save, and Burgee was telling me that actually also went off the crossbar. I didn't remember that part. Maybe it's just because I just totally blacked that part out.
No, you and Chris being able to do just PA for that, you guys were being able to listen to both of you. It was just the tension you could cut it with a knife. You could just hear in your voice, Chris's voice. Chris was doing a great job of keeping his color comments very short, letting you just kind of steer the ship with your play-by-play because, like Neil said, you didn't know when it was going to end. And that was probably I think, most lively crowd too, because we had the Railers EHL team behind the Railers net. Both teams had just unbelievable amounts of fans. It was just loud. Go watch all of Trevor's.
Well, the other cool thing about the EHLP game going first is that you also have the EHL fans coming in, getting ready for that game.
Yep.
So you really do kind of have everyone. But just to go back to Neil's point, one thing I will say, when Borisov knocked the puck into the corner and Shea Keating got it, right as he was making the pass, I kind of look and I see that Gruber's wide open. And I think at that point, I was thinking, this is probably it.
Yeah.
And the assistant coach, Cam Pape, was asking me if I saw the puck go in. I'm like, are you kidding me? I saw that net just fly, the net fly back when the puck hit it. And I knew it was a goal all the way. And at that point, too, my voice is being held together by duct tape and glue. Duct tape and bubble gum, I should say. That's the common saying. But it was, I don't know how Tyler does it. My voice is cracking the entire time. And I think my vocal cords are just happy that it finally ended.
Yep.
And this was case in point why I have one of you call the EHL games and one of you call the EHLP games, because it's
Two
a
crews
marathon of a
needed.
week.
Yep.
Obviously, from where I was standing down in the tunnel, it was tough because I didn't want to get in the way of Haley and Trevor, who are filming, Kara, who's taking pictures, Jake, who you even got him in for snippets throughout both overtimes, which is even tougher to throw it down ice level than come back and not miss anything. I mean, you have to fear that, like, if something happens quickly, you're still at ice level for a game-winning goal. That's like the worst case scenario. But I didn't even see it go in. I just saw AJ Golden go like barreling over the boards. I was like, all right, that means I'm going on the ice right now. So the celebration takes place for the 87th. We get off, and for the second time during the week, I had to have another heart-wrenching presser and conversation with the Railers, which I've done now 3 times in the last 2 years. The first one last year was tough with just Coach Bertoni. The second one this year with Coach Bertoni, Anthony Marchant, Charlie Odessa, and Stefan Kulhanek. And then the third one when John Fonlee says he's bringing Tyson Arujo into the room, which Tyson and John were both players in the league my very first year in the league, right? So the biggest thing for any Railers player, parent, coach, Matt Odessa, the owner, that I said to the guys there, and I'll say again for Worcester, whenever the first one comes, it is going to feel amazing. Like,
you know the goal. You know when the guys do the monkey off the back celebration after they've gone a long time without scoring.
Yeah,
they're going to take like monkeys, like a whole zoo of animals, and just throw them, chuck them.
Yeah,
because of how bad last year. Bad meaning emotional. I remember being in there with you for Coach Bertoni's press conference. I saw all of them go in, and I go, nope, not doing that again this year, because I knew it was going to be 12 times worse. It was like cut you with the knife, and then I saw you after, saw everyone else after, and it was like eyes were just bloodshot and just.
I mean, for the EHL team, right? They've been in the semifinals the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
For the EHLP team, they've been in the championship game twice.
Yeah.
When they get their first one, whether it's EHL or EHLP, it is going to feel amazing, and it's coming, right? I don't know what. Maybe it's next season, maybe it's not, but it's gonna come at some point. The dam is gonna break at some point, and they're gonna get their first championship. And it could have been in that EHLP game. I mean, I think Jamin Rolfe had a breakaway too in there at some point. I don't remember what time it was exactly, but they had.
I think that was early in the first. It was an 87's defender made like the slightest like stick tap just to like tick him a little bit off of his mark.
I think Miles Kidd had some opportunities to get a hat trick. I mean, can you imagine getting a hat trick or completing a hat trick in double overtime?
Yeah, it would have been insane. But that game ends, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, this is Westchester 2.0, right? Because that's what we were saying to each other going into it. Anthony called it on last week's podcast, right?
What to watch for.
He said what to watch for. It's a possibility that we have a Westchester repeat, which of course was 87s versus Railers at the P level and Rangers versus Avalanche at the EHL level. And we kind of all joked, like maybe the 2 other teams will get their revenge. But then the 87s win the first game, and I'm like, is this going to be 2.0 and the Rangers win also, and it's just a repeat, but it just happens here? And, the way that the Rangers came out, I asked you guys earlier if it hurt the Railers at the EHLP level to play as hard as they did on Saturday in their third game of the round robin. That meant nothing, right?
Yeah.
Did it almost benefit the Rangers that they had a game on Friday while the Avalanche sat around on Friday and Saturday before Sunday? Because ultimately,
rest versus rust, Neil, is that what you're talking about?
100%, Jeff. I mean, the Rangers were the better team in that first period.
Good point. Yeah, because I mean, at that point, you're so close to like the longest rest you'll have some guys ever, because that'll be it for your hockey careers. Some guys will be moving on to college, and some will come back next year. But that is an excellent point. You want to just kind of keep it going. You're working on adrenaline. I mean, we all were working on adrenaline at that point, but yeah, I didn't really think of that. I wish I did. That would have added a nice little color comment into our final broadcast, but might have been the case. That's a good point, Neil.
It was an excellent start for the Rangers. They go up 2-0. We had a review early on in there where I got to give them credit. There was a goal that was turned back on them, but then they still scored to make it 1-0. I mean, minutes
Well, Lecky,
later.
let us know at this celebration, huh?
Yes. Very Austin Matthews, if you will.
Yeah, right.
But then, I mean, you knew the Avalanche were going to punch back in the second. And boy, did they ever.
Yep.
Like, and maybe it's similar to what we were just saying about the Railers at the EHLP level, in that if you're the Avalanche, you have to kick yourself that you didn't get just the one more when things were tilted in your direction in that second period. Yeah, so instead of hitting the break 2-2, what if New Hampshire was up 3-2 going into the third period?
Yeah. I mean, that was both goals were from the top line, Racino and Hotchkiss. Hotchkiss, that was his first point of the Frozen Finals. Guy that was great all postseason long. Had, I think it was 9 points before the Frozen Finals week. And we were me and Tyler kept saying on the broadcast, like, where's number 8? Where's the captain? He was out there and he was making plays, just knocking on the score sheet. And I mean, that was the case of the Railers too, right? Jack Wyman, it took him a while to get on the score sheet. And yeah, I mean, sometimes it's your depth guys that end up pulling you to a championship. And for New Hampshire, you're right. Maybe if they could have just gotten one more tip before the end of the second, and then the third was just absolutely dead even. Me and Tyler talked about, first you absolutely give to the Rangers, the second you absolutely gave to the Avalanche, and then until those last 2 goals from Boston, which came in the closing under 5 minutes, it was literally just dead even. It was puck possession. You could see each team just didn't want to make that next mistake because it was tied. They knew the moment. Didn't want to go to an overtime period again like they did years ago.
It felt like we were going there.
It really did.
It felt like we were going there.
It did. I'm kind of sad it didn't. I don't know. As sad, as tired as I was, I love overtime playoff hockey, especially for a championship. But
I will say, Jeff, when the first overtime of the P game, or I forget which one, you made an announcement that we were going to overtime, and you did it in the big PA booing voice. And I was like down below in the hallway, and it like echoed in the hallway, and I was like, oh my God, like I'm alive now.
Yeah, baby. I always do that one. That's no matter what part I'm in, whether it's Matthews Arena, Bentley Arena, Schneider Arena, whenever I'm doing PA, we're doing overtime. Yep, we play with those are the fun ones to play with when the PA mic.
But of course, the Rangers get the eventual game winner with under 5 minutes left to go, as Jeff says. A call that was overturned on the ice, or through a review, I should say, to make it a goal. Obviously, that's stung for the Avalanche, but then the Rangers immediately got the icing on the cake with the Brett Beal. That ping was loud. I remember I was going down to the tunnel just to be ready, and I heard that. I was like, I immediately opened the door to where Chris was standing, and I looked to see if it was the yellow bench, going crazy, and I realized it was the gray bench going crazy, and I was like, damn, this game is over, because that obviously made it 4-2. Celebration ensues, and I said this
3:19. Those 2 goals were separated by 3 minutes.
Yeah, and I said
seconds.
I said this earlier, and I think I texted you on the fly, Jeff, because we had our all-tournament team picked. We didn't really know what to say for MVP. Right. And once that second goal went in, I was like, it's Vilak, man, because the Avalanche got a few more chances off, but on that stage, battling through what he battled through all year long, to win 3 straight games in 4 days, like that's a Jack Bosher type run, right?
Avs got 44 shots on net. They got double-digit shots on Vilak every period. They had 19 shots just in the second period alone.
Yeah. Can I say one thing real quick? I actually just realized this. There's a little not scary, but like interesting parallel between the 2 Avalanche teams. On Championship Sunday, Vilak's best save came on a one-timer from Kyle Dan at the left face-off circle on a one-timer. Vilak went into the splits and made this unreal save. Mm-hmm. Their EHLP team, we know the 87s had the 2 5-minute majors where they had a 5-on-3 for 2 minutes and 16 seconds. John D'Erico took a one-timer from that same spot, and Jason Larico lunged across and made a blocker save, which I thought was his best save of the game. So I think the 2 daggers for the Avalanche came at right around the same spot on the left circle, and if you were watching on hockey TV, on the right side, on the same nets.
Yeah.
So
Creepy. That's creepy.
It's
a little bit of parallel where you can kind of pinpoint 2 saves, one for each level, where that could have been the difference for the Avalanche.
Yeah. Oh, well, 100%. Obviously, celebration ensues for the Rangers. They have their second title. We get packed up. We hit the road. I'm not sure if you guys do this, but I always found myself thinking back and replaying games in my head and just like not even like I wasn't even part of the game, right? And it's just there's so many things because now like on the drive home, I just thought back to the entire postseason, right? Like, and you think of to me when you think of the first round, I think first of the save Louis Finnegan made against the 87s to send the puck up ice on Tristan Delia's stick, who then scores the game winner and sends Philly on, right? Then you move to the second round and 3 overtimes with the Rangers Express. And that's when James Berg scored and eventually brings the Rangers back to the Frozen Finals and avenges a loss that his brother suffered to the Avs.
Oh, that's right.
In Providence. We had James
he was
Berg's
a little
father
flyer
tweeting us about how Jacob Berg of the Little Flyers lost to the Avalanche in 2019 there. And the Avalanche, right? I mean, think about the chance Carson Whitman had in overtime of their game for the Spartans on a breakaway, right? Like,
inches.
And I found myself thinking about all these postseason moments, and I'm like, if this one bounce or one play goes a hair differently, the whole story is different.
Yeah. But like you just said, we were bounces away, inches away from 2 or 3 different teams making it to the Frozen Finals: Express, Spartans, and Team Maryland with the Little Flyers game. I mean, the game 3 of PLF and Team Maryland, the power every goal that Philly scored was on the power play. Right. So you got to wonder, one less penalty taken by Team Maryland, you're even strength. Maybe you get into the Frozen Finals, and that's a team that we haven't seen in the Frozen Finals since they've been in the EHL yet. So I thought about that too, Neil. Me and Tyler both talked about that intermissions, and he was still hurting from his Express. And I actually just saw some of the Express guys. I just saw Marcus Torgner and Jubron the other night in Foxborough, and I said, guys, they're like, oh man, we couldn't stomach going to the Frozen Finals. And I was like, no, I don't blame you. As a competitor and an athlete, like, it takes a lot out of you to lose a series like that. You were so close, and they were like, we're trying to watch on hockey TV. You guys do a great job, but we couldn't get there and watch in person. It just hurt too much. And I told him, I was like, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing. Just such a good year, just such a battle-tested season from game 1 to game. Geez, where the Rangers end up playing? I think it was 14 playoff games or 12 playoff games or something.
So they would have played 3, 4. It was 9.
Oh, 9, okay.
Because they had the 2 with the Seahawks, they had the 3 with the Express, and then they had 4 in Providence.
9, okay.
So I mean,
we're pushing 60 games.
Yeah,
these guys played.
Feel like had 7 wins, man.
Wow.
Like, so it's I think the biggest takeaway for me though with the playoffs is that for all those teams that didn't win, that didn't hoist the trophy, think about all those bounces, all those one-off plays that they just go a hair differently. Maybe they're the ones hosting the trophy up, because it was, I mean, we're recording this on Tuesday the 28th, and we're dropping it on Thursday the 30th. But as we record this, 3 weeks ago today is when the playoffs started. March 7th.
That's it.
3 weeks. That's all.
21 days ago?
Like 21 days felt like a year.
Yeah, it did.
Right? Because it's
everything
that took place. Like it felt like its own year. I mean, and at the EHLP level too. I mean, look at the work your way south again, right? The Avalanche EHLP team was in the play-in game. Like, I can't even comprehend that still. They were in the play-in game and then a goal away from being in the championship game. You stay in that division. They knocked off Adirondack, who was a really, really good team.
And we all
They
thought
look
we were
like
going
a
to go to the
favorite.
Frozen Finals. Yeah.
Like we thought they were the favorite to win the whole thing, right?
Kind of glad we didn't post our brackets this year, guys.
Yeah.
Just saying. They all got mutilated like one series in. We're like, and everything's destroyed.
Yes. The Wolves and Lumberjacks. I mean, another series where overtime had its presence.
Yeah.
Right. So
they played game 3, what, like the Monday before the Frozen Finals?
Well, that was the
premiere?
Wolves versus Avalanche, the next series, right?
That's what it was. Wolves.
But again, like if you want to highlight all of the series that went 3 games, how about all of the series where the team that won the series lost game one?
Yeah, and then just won 2 straight.
That's just insane to even think about. You work your way to the Boston division. The Express had the Rangers on the ropes before we even got into the second round.
The Nick Piazza show.
A team that only won 9 games in the regular season said,
I mean, hey, you wrap it up. Mid-Atlantic, the Renegades pushed the Huntsmen to game 3 in their first round. Yep. And then I guess, if I'm going to talk about John Fine-Lease and what he said in the post-game presser on Friday, then we'll just go with what. If you haven't watched Connell McNeil's post-game presser on Sunday yet, then you have to stop what you're doing right now and watch it, because, I mean, when you I love a little bit of cockiness, Jeff, you know that, right? Yep. Like, and when you can be cocky, like when the results back you up, like you can say whatever you want, right? So my question to Connell was, this is 2 EHLP championships in 3 years. Is it a dynasty? And he basically said, we'll go for 3 of 4 next year. And you know what? While we're at it, just keep disrespecting the South. Mic drop. And I was like, oh my God. Mike
fired me up.
There, and he was like, yeah, right before he got on with you, he was like, not one appearance in the power rankings in months. Like, they were amped. And I was like, you know what? Like, you can say that.
That's the day when you just shut it when the sun doesn't shine. You just go, hey.
I mean, what was so funny too is that I was the one who made that one comment where I said that they put the mid in the Mid-Atlantic. and I think Connell was cognizant of this too, where you kind of worry that if you play in a weaker division and you don't get to see teams in the Boston or New England division as much, then you kind of do worry, what's going to happen when you play in the Frozen Finals, where you're playing the best of the best.
Yeah.
Right. And they proved that they belonged.
Right. Everyone knew their record. They knew their record against teams over 500. And they were still able to stick through it with great play and great coaching. It's crazy that Connell's only 29. Like, the stops that he's had, I got to talk to him for a little bit in between one of the games. He's been at Adrian. He's been at Newman. He said that he thinks I was talking to him about how one of the games, Neil, we pointed out how what a great head of hair he has from down our angle.
I think I said that too.
Yeah, you were like, Connell's got a great head of hair. I'm like, he does. I'm like, he just carries himself as like an older guy, and for someone to have the experience he has at just 29 years old.
He's only 1 month older than me. I find that so hard to believe.
Yeah.
He said he thinks it's the way he dresses in his hair, the way he gels. I was like, no, I think it's more just the way you carry yourself too. You see him, and then you look at his resume. He's already been at Adrian. He's been at Newman, about the 87s for a couple of years. He's got a nice resume already before he's even 30 years old. Credit to him.
100%. But that was an entertaining last presser with him, because when he said that, I was like, damn. And I give the Renegades credit too. They posted a shout out to the 87s for representing the Mid-Atlantic division and winning it all. I saw that Instagram post. So it's cool to see the teams after the battles have all finished out, take the time to congratulate each other, right? Because they're showing just how much respect everyone has for each other at both levels, EHL and EHLP. And yes, a Westchester repeat where the 87s win the EHLP and the Rangers win the EHL. So maybe that's them saying we were the best team in Westchester, and if you questioned it, we were also the best team in Providence. So debate over, right? So
that was a weird year. We didn't play the full season. There was percentage points. It was a Cinderella team. I had said that to Rich before we started that game. Go, Rich, look, there's no mass. There's no percentage points. There's no extra team. We're just ready. And he goes, Yeah, he was like, I agree. I'm ready to play this on a nice even playing field. And I was like, may the best man win. And he was like, that's right, Jefferson. Smell you later. And I was like, see ya.
Tell you later.
That's it. And that's all that happened. It was just
Yeah,
what a
but
great week.
what a week. And like I can't thank
What a year.
both of you enough, and Tyler, and Jake and Mike and Trevor and Haley and the entire crew from Hockey TV, and Sean Roach, the trainer, who was also, I guess you could say, the de facto equipment guy for the week. Jeff Mazzone did all the scorekeeping. A shout out to Eric Durston and everyone at Providence. A shout out to the Providence Downtown Marriott. I mean, we had a tremendous place to stay. It was the best week we've ever had in Providence. Like it just simply was. I mean, we've had some great weeks there. And crowning a champion every year is awesome, but this week, this is one I'll remember for a while because it felt like everything that we set up was the way that I wanted to execute it. And that's a credit to everyone that worked the event.
This was by far my favorite event I've worked now. I've worked a lot of showcases. I was at the Frozen Finals last season. But not only were the games crazy, but I think the E crew in particular, like that was the most like fun. We had a lot of funny moments too. We had a lot of laughs. I mean, also big shout out to Jake Basile, his first year with the E crew. He's a freaking workhorse, and he's a terrific interviewer.
His brother too, Mike.
He does on social media, also on Hockey TV. Also, I just also want to point out one of the reasons why I had a lot of laughs was because he and his older brother Mike. Mike actually took Jake's spot for one game doing the ringside, and they both had incidents where they had the microphone, but it kind of looked the same on both ends, and they had the microphone upside down. And credit to Dave Thoreau because this is during the 87's Avalanche game. I say, okay, we're going to go send it down to Mike. And I can hear him, but the audio is really low. I look over to Chris. He starts smiling. I look over and I just see Mike just twirling the microphone like a baton.
Yes.
And it goes back to the shot to the scores table. And then it goes back to Mike. He's still twirling the microphone.
That was Dave's big expensive Sennheiser mic that I've had the pleasure of using before. And it's the opposite of what Jake and Mike used during the regular season, where the mic flag and the heaviness is up top. Dave's, the heaviness is down low. So that's why they were saying they were so used to like the weight of it. And then they're like, oh, nope. And I was like, hey, you know what? It happens. That's why I put erasers on pencils, baby.
You love that saying, Jeff.
I love it. It's one of my favorites.
But what a week. What a week. Again, thank you to everyone involved. This is how we always end one season and then start the next. Every
I already got my
Thursday
combine email this morning, Neil.
Yes. You know, if you're still not signed up, you should sign up pretty quickly. Just saying. But
Mass A, Michigan. Be there.
Yes, and coming up starting next week, we begin these Team of the Week features. So get ready. We're gonna be readjusting the top 10. Just to see if there's any changes that need to be made, right? We'll review the all-time roster that we did 2 years ago. We'll review the top 10 that we did this past year and just making sure we have it exactly where we want. Obviously, we'll feature an interview with every single coach throughout the offseason, and that will include new teams too. Boston Junior Terriers, Providence Hockey Club, at the EHL level, the Pennsylvania Huntsmen, right? It's as much as I want to definitely take the time to embrace what we just accomplished with this past season, the excitement and joy to turn the page to next season is already building up. And it's not just myself, it's you guys and everybody involved in the league. So we're going to close one chapter on 2020-23 and 2022-23. That would be a long stretch there. And begin looking forward to 23-24.
Yep. We always set the bar high, right? Every year we try to take it another notch. So try to take it another notch next year. Yep.
100%. So thank you guys again. When we talk next week, it's going to be to start previewing 23-24. And we'll kick it all off with the Boston Junior Rangers. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks for listening to The E-Show. Learn more at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when next week's podcast is released.